by. But joining me now is Democratic Congresswoman from California, Sara Jacobs. She sits on the House Armed Services and Foreign Affairs Committee. Congresswoman, thanks for being here. I want to start with what the president just said, that he suggested that Iran just has a few more days for the ceasefire before things potentially, before they apply more pressure. It's a little bit of a conflict with what he had said before, which was that he was on no timeline. What are administration officials telling you when they're coming up there to brief members of Congress about all of this?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, we don't really get a real strategy or plan from administration officials. We get briefed on the tactical successes that our military has had, and I think there's no doubt that our military has had tactical successes, but how those tactical successes actually fit into a broader strategy, how this war is going to end, how we're actually going to get to a negotiated solution that is in the benefit of the United States, they have no answers for us on. And, you know, I think it's very clear that they launched this war without any real strategy or plan, and now are sort of dealing with the consequences of that, and we really only have bad options moving forward from here. And that's why presidents from both parties have previously declined to do these kinds of strikes, because it will put us in this position where, we are likely to get now a deal that is worse than the deal we had under President Obama with the JCPOA, after 13 service members have been killed and billions of dollars have been expended.
Congresswoman, one of your fellow members of Congress, Senator John Fetterman, was with me a couple of days ago, and he argued that some Democrats, he said some Democrats are, quote, cheering for Iran. There have also been, I know Chris Murphy put something up on Twitter. He later said it was a joke, talking about the American blockade and how it was not working, and something that he had said about that. What do you say to critics like Fetterman about where Democrats are in terms of wishing for success or failure in Iran?
Well, that's absolutely a ridiculous thing for Senator Fetterman to say. I represent the biggest military community in the country. I have 2,500 San Diego Marines who are en route to the Middle East right now to potentially be deployed in a ground invasion in Iran. This is personal to me and to my constituents and to their families who are worried about them. And what we want is to get an end to this war so that we can actually make sure that we're addressing the economic costs that are happening right now, where my constituents in California are paying over $6 a gallon for gas, that we can get the strait reopened and actually get traffic moving, that we can protect our service members who are being sent over there with no real strategy or plan. That's what we care about. That, to me, is being more pro-American and more in favor of our troops than someone who's saying, well, their lives clearly don't matter enough, we can send them into harm's way without any real strategy or plan or how we're actually going to end this and get anything remotely good for American national security.
One other thing that you had said last month about President Trump is that he was the first president, quote, stupid enough to help Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, achieve regime change in Iran. Can you explain further what you meant by that?
Yeah, so Prime Minister Netanyahu has been trying to get the U.S. to work with him on regime change operations in Iran for decades. This is why he was so opposed to the Iran deal that President Obama negotiated. He wanted us to do a military action with him then. He's asked, other previous presidents, and every president has declined because they know that it would get us to this point where now we only have bad options of a negotiation where we're likely to get a lot less than we had before, and these real economic costs and costs to our alliances that are really damaging to U.S. national security. And so, I think that we have seen that this is something that, Prime Minister Netanyahu has wanted, has been trying to get us to do. And this is why every other president has declined, because it's not actually in U.S. national security. And we are here where we are with the strait closed, giving Iran billions more dollars because we need their oil to get out. All of these things that are hurting Americans.
Fair enough. It's worth noting, in this conversation broadly about the Israeli prime minister, you're the youngest Jewish member of Congress. You have family living in Israel, but you've also been a critic of Israel. And I'm interested to know what your diagnosis is of your party and its stance around and toward Israel right now. How would you explain it?
How I would explain the Democratic Party's stance is, first of all, we're not a monolith. There are lots of different opinions in our party, and that's not a bad thing. We all represent our districts, and our districts are different. But by and large, what I would say is just how you can be pro-American and love America without supporting anything that Donald Trump is doing. You can also consider yourself pro-Israel and understand the need for a Jewish state without supporting any of the things that Prime Minister Netanyahu is doing. And in fact, in many ways, being a good friend is standing up to people like Prime Minister Netanyahu, who I would argue are actually damaging Israeli national security, damaging the U.S.-Israel relationship, and damaging the safety of American Jews with his reckless behavior.
All right, Congresswoman Sara Jacobs, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.